What was the first thing on your mind today?
Um, I guess the first thing on my mind, now that I think about it more, was should I get up now or should I lay in bed longer?
I definitely find myself having more late mornings because the rink was closed for a period of time. So I just didn't really have to wake up until I had a class.
I'm really lucky. I don't live that far from school. Like it takes me maybe 15 minutes to get there, but it feels like 15 morning minutes are like really crucial. And so there's been pros and cons of working from home.
Have you listened to any music today? And if so, what was it?
I haven't listened to any music today, but I listen to music all the time. But what about you?
Yeah, definitely. I try to listen to music every day just because I think it's a really good stress relief. And I also really enjoy like finding new music. But like if you just had to put something on today, what's your mood for today?
Funny that you like bring up looking for new music because it's a hobby of mine and one of the things I like to connect with students on. And every year, I started doing this about 10 years ago. I make a mix. I used to make a lot of mixes because I was came up in an age when first I made mixes on tapes, and then I made mixes on CDs, which was exciting. And now you do it all digitally. So I love mixes, but I make my best of mix. So every like song that came out that year that I liked, I make a mix of it. So I just made my best of 2020 mix, and James Blake is an artist that I really like. Two of his songs are on it. He's like a British electro kind of pop musician, and one of his songs is called Godspeed, that I think is really beautiful. Brittany Howard is the name of an artist that I really like, and she's the lead singer of a band called Alabama Shakes. I just love her music. I think it's really powerful. So
I haven't heard of either of those, but I'll be sure to check them
yeah,
out.
okay, cool. Yeah, you have any good recommendations for me? What kind of I always petition the students to tell me what they're listening to.
Yeah. A lot of my music taste is influenced from my dad
Me too.
and then also my friends. So he used to do this thing where if he would play like the radio in the car, he would make me guess the artist, or it'd be like if it was a Beatles song, he'd make me guess which of the Beatles were singing which verse. So I have like that kind of older sense of music, but I also love a lot of like Harry Styles and like Lana Del Rey.
Seems really similar to my house growing up. I know it's interesting. Like some people, like they love the music that their parents, introduced them to, and then I also feel like some people, like teenagers, will pick the exact opposite type of music that their parents liked. Yeah, it could go both ways, and I kind of came around. Like I listened to so much Beatles when I was a kid that there was a time when I was a teenager. I'm like, no thanks. Like been there, done that. And now the Beatles always make me feel good, and I just love listening to their music.
How
So
long have you been teaching at MEA?
MEA, this is my fourth year. The seniors this year, I feel like I've got a little special bond because they've sort of been at the high school the whole time I've been there, so it's kind of cool.
MEA is such like a unique type of school. How do you feel teaching at this kind of independent study school has changed you specifically in like how you view your role as an educator?
Yeah, I love teaching at MEA, but it definitely was a big adjustment. And I'd been teaching at, like traditional schools Monday through Friday for, I guess, about 10 years before I got to MEA. And one of the things I was nervous about going to MEA is just not, I was like, will I know the students? Like I'm not going to see them that often. And will we have that, sort of relationship that when you're with people every day in a classroom, you get to know them really well. So I wasn't really sure how that would like play out. But because the school is so small and because I get to have the same students in class more than one year, it's been like the opposite. I feel like I've gotten to know the students really well. And I guess from a teaching standpoint, like I've just tried to work on and practice ways that I can get students to explore things on their own, you know, independent study and design assignments that they can do by themselves. And that's taken some work, but you know, I try to, you know, we have like the precious few minutes like each week all together, and so trying to take advantage of that and design activities for when we're together in person or you know online this year. But it's actually been cool. Like I feel like every year I can tweak my plans and try to make sure that we can like boil down the curriculum to like the most important or most interesting things. It's kind of exciting every year to re-examine the plan and try and perfect it or make it better.
Yeah, I definitely, when I transferred here, a big conversation my parents had with me was like, you might not have as close as a bond with like your classmates or your teachers, but I found that because everything's so much more intimate, it actually felt like there was a much safer space for me to like mess up. It was much less competitive, even though the kids might be like more advanced than the school I went to previously. It just felt a lot like safer of a community.
I know we have like you know we have students from all different backgrounds, but a lot of our students are really high achieving and it's great to hear from your perspective because that's the feeling I get too that it's not competitive between the students at our school where I know that at other places it's not like that and there's real like you know status symbol in terms of your grades and your test scores and college acceptances and things like that. So
I think a big part of it is because every student, most students that go to MEA have like a passion to supplement their education, so their whole life isn't defined by grade. So we're kind of mature in that aspect where we learn to support each other when it comes to like schoolwork and grades versus who has the most star-studded college application, which I really value going to MEA.
that's really insightful. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it from that angle, but yeah, that's really cool.
When did you first like think that you wanted to become a teacher in the future?
I can distinctly remember one of my friends' moms asking me in like I think that maybe the seventh or eighth grade, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I already knew. I was like, a PE teacher. I'm gonna teach PE when I get older. I'm gonna coach the basketball team, and I'm gonna be a PE teacher. And that changed a little bit, you know, in terms of I have taught PE, and I guess technically I still do teach PE, although it's a little different than what I imagined at MEA. But I kind of always knew, I guess, that I wanted to be a teacher.
That's really interesting because I know different teachers, some of them kind of found it while they were in college, but some people have always like had the desire to teach. Do you think that you would ever, given the opportunity, return to teaching to like a more normal school compared to MEA?
Not by choice. No, like I kind of had like an interesting path to getting my job here at MEA. I didn't get a lot of background information about what the school was like, and I had like a day to decide what job I wanted to choose from. I had a pick of a couple jobs. The person from human resources that offered me the job and I was like, "Tell me more. What's Mount? I'd never heard of it before. What's Mount Everest? You know, what's independent study?" And they're like, it's independent study school." Like they couldn't tell me anything about it, which was cool to have a choice. So I called the. It was like over the summer, and one of our old staff members was working in the office, and I called and I talked to her. I'm like, "So what's up with this school? You know, can you tell me anything about it?" And she was like, nobody leaves. Like everybody loves the school. You know, people want to retire in this job, and I was able, and I had a choice to go back to UC High, which I had a really great experience at, and my wife was like, I don't know, I think you should go back to UC High. Like, who knows what this other school was going to be like. And I just, a lot of times in my life, I just kind of know, I can be decisive. And I was like, no, I think this is the right one. And, and that's the kind of job I wanted, the ones that people want to have for as long as they want to work. So I'm hoping that I can, continue my career as long as possible here. But like my first year, I taught at UC High, which is a, comprehensive school, and I had a great year, and I really liked teaching there. And because I was new in the district, I got pink slipped, which means you get kind of shuffled around potentially if you get hired back, which is always stressful for teachers. And I'm always worried that that could happen to me again. The more tenure you get, the less likely it is to happen. But so I know that it might not last forever being at MEA. There's pros and cons to teaching in both systems, and I know I could do it again, going back to teaching in a traditional school. But I love MEA and love the staff and the students and the schedule, and yeah, it's definitely where I want to be.
What would you say is your like most favorite part about teaching at MEA?
Like you've been in my history classes, and we get to talk about the world and politics and history, and like, to me, really important things. And it feels to me that the students are really invested in our community and in our world. I think there's like, a stereotypical teenager that would be like, who cares? All I care about is, my plans for Friday night or whatever. And obviously there's an element to that, with all people and with young people, just the student buy-in and like the passion that they have for, our world and learning. It's just really cool and fun to be around.
I completely agree, especially in history when we would do like debates compared to how we would do like similar assignments at my previous school. There's just like a different maturity level where things would get petty really quickly and there would be no substance to any conversation, versus I feel like everyone in all the classes I have are like willing to be open-minded and like learn not just from a teacher but from like their surrounding students, which is really, really cool and valuable.
Like, great keyword, maturity. Like, students seem, overall really mature, and they're so smart just in general. They blow me away. And in some ways it feels more like teaching out of college. It's an awesome place to work. What school did you go to before MEA?
I went to Marshall Middle School, and
Okay.
the feeder school would be going into Scripps Ranch High School.
Okay.
And just the kids I was around, there wasn't anything like blatantly negative. It was just I always call it like the stereotypical movie middle school, high school. And I actually came about MEA like a similar way. A friend recommended it to me. I had no idea what it was until I went in for the tour.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents were like, this doesn't seem like a real school. But I'm here now and I really enjoy it. So
that's awesome.
On the flip end, what would you say is one of the not so great things about teaching?
Honestly, grading, like the sort of the paperwork. And that, for MEA specifically, there's more total grading to do. I think I would be doing a lot more of my evaluating of the students, like in person. I've just, tried to do better about being patient, with the work and knowing that it's always going to get done. But sometimes, you get this huge stack in front of you and you're like, you just want to be done with it. And so it can be time consuming to give like personal feedback. And I've been using this voicemail system. That's made grading more enjoyable. It feels like I can give a little more authentic feedback at some point.
And it definitely feels more rewarding to students when we get like personal feedback versus just like an A. An A is great. I'll take
Great job.
Yeah. What's the most rewarding part of teaching?
Just the connections, the interpersonal stuff with students and staff. And like every once in a while I'll get some feedback. Like I got this feedback from one of the students in my government class that was at the end of the semester. It was sort of along the lines of I've always known I've had these opinions about things, but I didn't really know what was going on in politics or in the government, and now I just feel so much more confident to express myself and like that kind of stuff. When you hear that, it's like, oh, that's the goal, like you want to empower students and help them find their voice, in certain ways. And so just getting that kind of positive feedback and feeling like you're helping somebody achieve something or grow in some way, that's definitely the best part.
You've definitely helped me kind of become more confident in educational opinions and just being able to like speak out more and not just do the work. So
awesome. Yeah. That's so great to hear. Yeah, you're such a great student and you have such valuable opinions. So yeah, it's been really fun to have you in class.
Thank you. Before we move on to our quarantine section of the questions, the last question I have is there anything you'd like to tell the students at MEA who are watching this?
I guess to segue into the pandemic stuff, I just want to thank all the students for being so flexible this year and working hard and just to me, it's felt like we've been able to accomplish a lot, even though we've had these huge challenges and not being in person. And I know that wouldn't be possible without this. It's a two-way street. The students have had to do a lot of extra things, and we always have huge successes at this school. And to be able to say that this year, I think just speaks a lot to the student body.
So moving on to our quarantine questions. What's something that you miss from life before the pandemic?
Just like traveling. Even before the pandemic, being a parent of a young child has, made it so that we stay closer to home a lot. But I just miss being able to explore, and yeah, I've been like so privileged to be able to travel in my life, and I have the travel bug. Like I want to go everywhere, and so just being patient with that, and definitely just miss traveling to see my friends and my family and all that stuff.
Yeah, I always say that like just because you have a paper cut doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. Like
Totally.
I recognize like the privilege that I have to visit and just have a roof over my head, but it does kind of suck not to be able to travel.
For sure.
When you have the opportunity to, where is the first place that you'd like to visit?
It's a really tough question, but I think Japan is on the top of my list. I've never been to Asia. Everybody that I know that's gone there or lived there just has like the best things to say about it. One of the main reasons I love to travel is to eat. I love food, and I love Japanese food, and it was really important to me to try and instill like a diverse palate in my daughter. It's trust me, it's a lot of mac and cheese, that's like the go-to, but she loves like ramen. That's like her favorite food, and it makes me so happy. And she ate the other day. We got her ramen, and she ate the entire side of edamame before my wife and I could even have a bite. And nothing could make me happier than her like trying new foods and things like that. And I think it's a great place to travel with children, from what I've heard. So yeah,
I've never been to Japan, but I've been to China because all my relatives on my mom's side live there. And definitely food is like, I love to visit my grandparents, but food is kind of the driving factor because some things you just can't make here. I'll say that I'm visiting for my grandparents, but it's also the food.
When was the last time you got to go?
I think I went maybe 3 years ago with my mom and my brother, and we like visited everyone.
My dad's a teacher too. He's a high school teacher, and the Chinese government would pay for teachers to come and learn about their culture and develop curriculum. So he got to travel to China, Korea, and Japan, like in different summers to like tour around and learn about it, and they would go to schools and things like that. So yeah, I would love to have those experiences as well.
That's really cool to have that opportunity. What's something that you've learned to value more this past year?
I guess I don't know. I got my mind's going to like a bunch of different places here, but just overall, just being grateful for my security. I guess these situations just make you like boil down your life and be grateful for some of the things that you might take for granted in the everyday. You know, like you mentioned before, like having a roof over my head, still being able to maintain my job, and then just my general health, you know.
It's interesting because the virus didn't just wasn't just bad because the virus. It puts so many other things at hold.
That's exacerbated issues that were happening before, and created new, you know, issues for a lot more people. And it's like, I don't know, you know, when things get back to normal, you know, we're always hopeful, you know, as you know, historians, that we can learn from our mistakes, and we can make changes in the future that will be better.
And it's pessimistic, but there's a lot of it's also kind of realistic given how events similarly how like events that are similar have happened. COVID, as terrible as it was, it brought a lot of like social issues to light. Not necessarily a good thing, but it needed to happen. But realistically, will it?
You know, circling back to, you know, why I like teaching at MEA, or why I like teaching in general, is like working with young people is just really helpful for my optimism, you know, and just it's just like a great counterbalance to I don't know, like, you know, if you you know, watch the news and things like that, it can be really depressing, you know, and really negative, and then it's like you have these like real world experiences with other human beings, and you're like, oh, that's the distortion of what the world is really like. It's refreshing and like inspiring to work with you guys.
I like never would watch the news before Trump became president. And even for like the first 2 years, it was like I didn't want to hear about it. But then eventually I was kind of forced to just watch the news just to like have a sense of what was happening. And now that we have a new president and things seem to be improving, I still find myself watching the news. And another thing is my dad always makes me we'll watch CNN for like our actual factual news, but then he'll make me go watch Fox News just to kind of be like, there are people out there who watch this and believe it's true, or they truly will ride or die on Fox News, just to kind of have that realistic view that not everyone just thinks the same way you do.
That's awesome. There's actually like some graphs that I show to my government class, but where people consume the news is really polarized. It's definitely a real issue, you know, that people are sort of viewing the world or consuming the world in such different ways. And at the same time, like my extended family is really split politically, and I just know that overall we want the same thing.
Something like interesting as well is I was watching like a documentary on North Korea, and even my mom would tell me when she was raised, everything was censored, so they were raised to like worship their leader. Everything that they were hearing was like fixed to make them hear what they want to hear, versus here people who watch Fox News aren't forced to only watch Fox News. They have the opportunity to look at other resources and have an open-minded view, but there are people who just choose to be ignorant because they're scared of like being wrong, or they're scared of like friction. But friction leads to growth, and I think people need to understand that there has to be conflict in order for people to progress in life.
That's really well said. Yeah, and again, one of the key word I think is fear. You know, and I think it can happen on both sides of the political spectrum, but like to me, fear is just one of the most negative emotions. To me, I see that the fear-based news on both sides of the political spectrum, and I think that it sells. We're all turning on the TV, like, oh my God, we're scared. We want to know more about it. To make political decisions out of fear, I don't think it's very productive.
Yeah. We can move to our last section, which is more personal questions. What's something that you could rant about like forever? It can be super surface level.
NBA basketball, my disconnect, just like my happy place. I'd listen to people talk about basketball, like podcasts and stuff. So I know just like way more than anybody needs to know about basketball. And, like, I know like all the gossip and like it's just as much about sort of the drama off the court. That's kind of in some ways like this fantasy world that I escape to, I think.
My dad also, he watches basketball and baseball, and he pretends not to care about like the drama off the courts, but then also like watching the like after show and like you see all the drama. So
yeah. Total soap opera. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I would say it's the same thing. I like choose something that I fixate on and I know way too much than I should about it.
Yeah.
Like after I watch a movie, I'll go watch the entire press tour. So when I'm watching it again, I'll be like, did you know for this take, they only had like one frame left? And my friends are like, just enjoy the movie.
Nice. Remind me again, Timothy Charlemagne. Was that your guy? Like, who did you love? You loved somebody.
Oh, I went through a lot of phases.
Last year, who was the one in The King that was the one who?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I watched that. You recommended that movie, and I watched it. It was really good.
Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, no, it was good.
Do you have any advice you would give your younger self, or maybe just some good advice you have?
When I was in high school, I wish I could go back and just have put more effort into my studies. Like, I didn't really enjoy school or learning until I got into college. Probably not until my second year of college. The light bulb went off, and I was like, "Oh, this is amazing! Like, I love learning new things, And in high school, I was just more focused on my sports and my friends. Like, my friends were everything to me, and school was just something that I had to do. And I was a strong enough student that I could just do the bare minimum all the time and be fine. Get A's and B's, that kind of thing. And now I sort of look back at it and I'm like, oh, that's kind of a wasted opportunity. Like, I could have learned a lot more if I had just applied myself. I was just sort of lethargic, I think, when it came to like doing schoolwork. And my high school experience and work ethic was really different than most of my students now, I would say, that are like really dedicated. Yeah, I don't know. To give myself some credit, when I was young, I had like sort of a sense of adventure, I guess, in a way. Like, after I got my teaching credential, I moved to Mexico City for a year, and I was pretty like conscious at that point that I wasn't going to have opportunities to have experiences like that in the rest of my life. I had always thought I would have things that I have right now, like a family and more responsibilities and those sort of things. So that's what I always, I teach Spanish too, and I always, especially my Spanish students, I'm like, when you're in college, study abroad if you can. If you have those kind of privileged opportunities, take advantage of it and see the world and have adventures and experience new things. And I don't think there's any way to learn more about yourself than to put yourself in a new situation, that's different than what you've known before. And I just personally, that was so valuable.
Yeah, definitely. I visited Mexico a few times. We've been to Cabo, that's usually where we go to, and then China. And it's definitely, I always feel extremely uncomfortable just because it's just a different culture. But I've learned to enjoy it and take it more as like, not everything's like the way it is in San Diego. And it's really important for you to learn about different environments. It's just important to be aware.
Yeah. And I found like truth in that too. Like, it's really cool to learn another language. And not everybody is in a position to take advantage of that. Not everybody gets to, I think 1 or 2% of the world's population gets to go to a university. It's like already in this hugely privileged place where the majority of people at our school get to go to university. Sometimes I feel like you got to try and take advantage of that because other people don't get those opportunities.
We've touched on music a few times throughout this. If you had to choose a piece of music that defined your personality, that's a really difficult question, I'm aware. Or an album.
I don't. We were supposed to recommend songs, all the teachers, and they were gonna make a playlist, but I never saw it. Like I put in my recommendation, and it was like sort of this question, like, "What's your song?" And I picked a song called Latino America by Cate, and it's like this rap group from Puerto Rico. Yeah, Puerto Rican, I'm pretty sure. It's a Spanish song, and it's about history and it's about Latin America, and it's I love hip hop, I love rap music, and so I felt like that was like a blend of a bunch of my interests, and it's like there's a lot of social justice themes in it, and it's cool.
I'll be sure to listen to it. Yeah, it's a really hard question. I have two, I would say. I have one song that I think helps me identify with myself, which is Vienna by Billy Joel. And then I have a song. I used to do like karaoke with my dad a lot, and we would usually just sing one song. And it was
What's your song?
It was Copacabana. I don't remember the artist, but whenever I hear that song, it has a lot of sentimental value.
That's cool. It seems like you and your dad are tight. Like you've mentioned him a bunch of times, and your music and stuff like that.
It's an interesting relationship. Just in general, certain things are really easy to talk about with your parents, and certain things are not. Like music, pop culture, the just surface level interests, but definitely other things. I love to talk, but when it comes to like my own emotions or just recognizing how I feel, it's just, I don't like talking about that.
Yeah, for sure. Are there some people that you feel more comfortable sharing that stuff with, or do people bring that out of you?
Definitely my friends, and they're definitely like, Nicole, I think therapy would really help you. But it's something I've been trying to like journal. Terrible at being consistent with it, but at least try to do it. I'm really proud of myself for like recognizing that communicating emotions and just kind of where I'm at is an issue for me. Now I just need to grow from that.
I feel the same. Like, and so like in my life, sometimes things just build up, over time that you don't let out, and like sometimes they'll just build up, and then all of a sudden I just like have this big cry, and it's like, oh, after that you just feel so much better, and it's like really like telling to how much you were carrying with you like all that time up to it, and yeah, it's not always easy for me to let it out, but it's so important, and like therapy, it's like who wouldn't benefit from that, if you have the time and and the money to do it. It's just like becoming more in tune with yourself and your feelings and stuff is really helpful. Yeah, talking about emotions is tough but so important, like anything that's really important, it's probably also hard in some ways.
Something I like to remind myself is that like I get really anxious and nervous, and I always remind instead of just trying to like not like that part of myself, I'm like, well, that means you care about it. I have a virtual piano recital, and I'm so nervous for that, but I just have to remind myself that it's a good thing because it means I care.
Wow. Yeah, I know. Maybe some of these challenging emotions could actually be positives in some way, but so much easier said than done.
Yeah. What's a book that you think everyone should read?
Oh, we were just talking about it in Academic League today. Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. It's a story about a family they're called like Okies. They're from Oklahoma, and they get kicked off their farm during the Great Depression, and they migrate to California. yeah, I just think there's a lot of relevance to that story. It's heavy and sad, but I think it's really valuable. What else? There's a book. I don't know if I'd recommend it to everybody because it can be tough to read. It's like in kind of an interesting style, but sometimes a great notion by Ken Kesey. He's from my school. He's a professor at my school in Oregon, and sometimes you consume a piece of art and it just like knocks you off your feet, and if you get it, and sometimes things are trying too hard and you're like, I don't get it, like didn't do it for me. In parts of the book, within like grammatically, it's like really non-conventional, and in parts of the book they'll switch back and forth from the first person narrative like in the same paragraph, and that can be like really discombobulating. But if like you get to know the characters, and so you can kind of tell through context who's talking at which time. And anyways, it just knocked me off my feet. It's just like a really incredible story, just like the art of the way that it was written. But I wouldn't really recommend it to everybody because I don't think everybody appreciates it.
I used to be like a really hardcore bookworm. I really love The Secret Life of Bees, which I read like a long time ago, and I just really loved that book. It touched on so many different social issues, and even if the book took place a while ago, it still held relevance today. And because I don't really have a lot of time to like sit down and read like a chapter by chapter book, I've been reading a lot of like poetry, and I just got Love is a Dog from Hell by like Charles, don't know how to pronounce his last name, and I really like that book.
That's awesome. Secret Life of Bees is on my bookshelf, but I've never read it. So you've inspired me.
Yeah. Okay, we're on our final question.
Cool.
Broad question.
Okay.
What's something you think the world needs more of?
I know it's like cheesy, but it's just love, It's like people not only amongst each other, but for themselves, I think. I think a lot of people, myself included, like we can just be really hard on ourselves, and like being able to develop that sense of self-worth that just translates to all the people you interact with, and that kind of thing. And so I don't know, that's a really broad, kind of thing, but it's just that energy, that positive energy, and like that feeling of loving something or receiving love is just like it doesn't get any better than that. I think the opposite, like we were talking about, in some ways, is fear. And so if we can just, as a world, just have more of that positive energy, I don't know. I feel like I'll just like being, I don't know, hippy dippy or something like that. But
most issues can stem from whether you choose to take action because of love or because of fear. Don't be afraid of fear, but don't let it like dictate actions, because that's hateful. And you can feel passionately about something and hold love for something, and that will like lead you to so much more growth versus fear. Yeah. So I don't think it's cheesy. I think it's a very valid answer.
Cool. And the song Brittany Howard, You'll Never Walk Alone. That's what it's called. You'll Never Walk Alone. And it, to me, is really inspiring, and like the conversation that we're having and being positive and staying together, those kind of things, that resonates in her music.
Before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to tell our viewers?
Just that my daughter's really into the solar system right now. Yesterday, she came home from preschool, and she's 3. And she goes, Dada, Mercury is really hot because it's right next to the sun. But Earth is close to the sun and it's hot, but we can still live here. And I was like, okay, she's already learning so much. She knows more about the solar system than I do already. So super proud of her.
That's really good to hear.
This is really fun, Nicole. Thanks so much for inviting me. We don't get a chance to catch up as much, that we're doing distance learning. So it's really nice to sit down and talk to you.
Yeah, you as well.